If I put this under the chair, will it be in the shot?
Some of it. Here, let me just take it.
How did you get started and how's this added meaning to your life?
Well, it was sort of one of those things where in high school my grades were never really matched up to my aptitudes, that sort of thing. Mom and Dad got worried and sent me to a career counseling center in Stanton, Virginia. And anyway, no, I'm not making this up. So I sort of, gave my likes and dislikes and took all the tests and everything. They told me I should be like an undertaker or something like that. And as I went on to college, still was sort of the same aimlessness. Mom and Dad were looking for like a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or something like that. And I wanted a job where you could like drink a lot, stay up all night, and smell bad. And rock and roll was pretty much the only one that fit that had the right job description. Unfortunately, the pay is not really the best, for somebody starting out. So I spent a lot of time flipping burgers. I spent a lot of money on college, and I think my last quarter I went to about 15% of the classes I was signed up for, and got out with something like a 1.83. And I said, wait a minute, this is silly. This costs money. I'm paying money to fail. I can just go out and fail on my own and not have to pay quite so much to, for the privilege of doing it. So I started flipping burgers, and all of a sudden, musicians starve, minimum wage cooks starve. What's the difference? So I started calling myself a musician, and after about a year and a half of flipping burgers, I decided that I would never work in food service again. So, and not only did I play with Not Shakespeare, which brought in a little bit of money, but when we started playing, there was nobody in town that had a decent sound system or knew how to make one work. So we pretty much learned all that from the ground up as we started. And we started doing sound for other people, and I still do that, and that's still where most of my income comes from. All the money from the band goes back into the band for publicity and mailing records to college radio stations and things, and just even making the records. So at this point, everybody in the band is pretty much self-sufficient, and the income from the band all goes back into the band. It's finally gotten to the point where I have enough equipment and enough clients where I can pretty much count on a steady cash flow. I still don't have a lot of the things that your 30-year-old, your average 30-year-old has, like health insurance, things like that, sort of fall by the wayside. But all in all, I think, financially, I would be in about the same position if I'd taken a job that I couldn't work at, because I imagine by now I would have had, I would have bounced around 15 or 20 jobs, and people would have sort of gotten the idea that I was one of those permanent job hoppers.
Tell us about some of your songs, Burn, my personal favorite, and the ones that are on the so-called White Album.
Okay. Time out for hijinks. I have to think about this one.
It would be so much easier if you could tell us exactly what burn means, and then we have to go home and try to dream this up in no sleep.
As far as my writing goes, I started writing from a really conservative standpoint. If you want to say, if you're writing a song, you're writing a song because you want to say something. You might as well say it as clearly and precisely as you can, so that it doesn't get, the meaning doesn't fall by the wayside. I always used to get kind of irritated with people like Bob Dylan and Patti Smith that got so their lyrics got so disconnected from the meaning. it started out, they go into subcultural slang and things like that, and then gradually just sort of divorce the lyrics from meaning. And it's like, well, what's the point? And so, at first I always wanted everything to say something clearly with precision. And gradually I started to realize that there was a reason. This I can't go into this. I haven't thought about it enough.
Well, help us out. How and why did you write Burn? And then from the EP, my favorite is Flood, which is beautiful.
Okay, snap. There's a song called Burn, which Ann Cheney sort of blames this whole Life Fest fiasco on when, it was the one that sort of infected her. I hope that at my best, my writing is sort of infectious. It's the kind of thing that just sort of sneaks up on you and you just can't get rid of it. I want to write a song that's like a virus. And Burn, I was sort of addressing. I wrote it at a really low point in my life, and I was just sort of addressing the kind of alienation that I felt. And that, I've always been a person that has cultivated the image of the outsider, and all of a sudden I was forced to confront the fact that I wasn't really happy with the version of myself that I had created, and that while I was pretty much my own creation, I wasn't happy with it. And Burn was sort of my way of addressing that.
I think it's a really existential song. Is that wrong?
No, I don't think so. It was sort of me.
When we look at that on the original, maybe it's just a copy.
Uh,
It's the original.
I had built built up this romantic image in my head of the lone rebel, and sort of tried to mold myself into that. And as I became more of what I thought I wanted to become, I started to realize that
It shakes.
that wasn't really a decent existence. There were a lot of social values that sort of thing ignored, and so it is very much just sort of a look at myself as a self-created person.
That might be dropped
Yeah.
out of the original tape you have.
You mentioned being a part of society. One question I've kept asking you is,
Well,
what social issues concern you?
Comments about
And or has not Shakespeare done many benefits? That was everything about just like history.
Well, look.
Well, when we were asked to do Life Fest,
Okay.
our stock answer for that was,
Okay.
well, we just don't
All right,
do benefits. We don't play for free.
All right, sorry about that. I'll see what.
We've been to, one too many.
Right.
Early in our career, we've been to one too many. It was really poorly organized benefits that all the bands were scrapping with each other, and there was no stage manager, and everybody ran over time, and everybody just wound up hating each other, and they really didn't make any money for the causes. So, Life Fest was really unusual for us. We don't do benefit projects, but the social cause it's one of those things where AIDS is not going to go away unless everybody decides to take personal individual responsibility for their sexual health and well-being, and that goes along with my I'm still an individualist. I've gone from being a libertarian to being, I don't know, some sort of strange pseudo-libertarian now. But that was it seemed like here was a chance to really make a difference, as opposed to sending a measly check for $200 to some office in Los Angeles to save a whale or something, and not really knowing whether you're making a difference or not. Not that those people don't make a difference, but I don't think that it was when I do something, when I work for somebody like the Rainforest people or Amnesty International. When I work for somebody like the Rainforest people or Amnesty International or something like that, all I see is a check goes out, and that's not. I don't see any other impact from that. You see them in the news, great, and I'm sure they're making a difference. But for me, I want to, if I'm going to be involved in something, I want to be able to see the results of it around. And I think we have seen some really good results. I think we've definitely raised awareness in Blacksburg of the AIDS issue, and I think we made a lot of people that were saying it can't happen to me maybe think again, and that was the whole point.
Yesterday we found one of the houses you lived in before Whipple Drive, and there's an unconfirmed rumor that was the site of the first benefit called Duck Fest. Could you comment on that?
Well, no.
No. Did you really have ducks in the basement?
No, we didn't really have ducks in the basement.
We'll just ignore that answer because it's such a good story, even though it's apocryphal. The other questions that I've had are again sort of predictable questions. Why music? You've answered that. Why does it bother you not to have some of the sort of creature comforts you could have if you had done right?
What bothers me about what I do is I am my own boss, and it's very hard to take a vacation. That's the main thing. I have 3 sisters. I have 4 sisters. I'm just going to feel terrible. I have 4 sisters, and they're all yuppies, and they do things like go skiing in Europe once a year and things like that. And I just, particularly in the last year, I just haven't made the time to get some distance from my work. It's just been constant workload, and I am, great. I'm making more money, paying more bills, but there are times when I just need to be able to get away from it, and that's the only thing I really miss. I mean, I have a house that's heated, and we have television and stereos that go out to eat. Do all the things that I assume that money people don't do. I don't go, I don't fly to Paris for dinner. But I think that's. I have a reasonably middle class existence right now, as far as creature comforts go, with the one exception of having time off, and that's, I think, something that anybody that starts their own business runs into.
I really would like to know a little bit more about the songs on the EP. That's great about Blunt, but about Flood, Vertigo. Again, what are some of maybe the sources of your songs or other things you'd like to say about it?
We have the song that leads off the EP is called Flood, and when I really sat down to write that, we had the music written for the most part, and I've been playing around.
I must not have liked this song.
There's a song from our upcoming album Aphasia called Flood, and when I sat down to write the lyrics to that song, we'd already had the music written, and I accumulate reams and reams of paper with phrases and this and that, just strings of words that I like the sound of, or that I like the idea behind, and I just accumulate these things as they occur to me. Legal pads underneath the bed, spread all over the room. So I went digging through. All those, and I decided that I wanted to write this really steamy sex ballad. And I worked with a bunch of phrases that I had worked from a bunch of phrases that I had written with water imagery and this and that. And I was thinking about a particular time a couple of years ago. I went down to the river with someone around midnight, and it was really great. And I thought I wanted to get that into a song. So I sat down and I hammered at this and played at that, and it just sort of didn't want to go in that direction. And what I came up with was, but the final result of the process was something that was cohesive. And while it didn't say what I intended to say when I started out, which I guess is the mark of a good writer, or someone that really has command of their art, is that they say what they want to say when they want to say it. Well, this didn't say what it started out to say, but it became much more spiritual examination of just sex and being in love. And I sort of made it a point not to write love songs per se, just because there are so many other people out there doing it, and so many people out there that do it much better than I do. And being is that I'm a confirmed bachelor, and I haven't had a relationship that lasted over 3 months in the last 8 years. I really don't feel qualified to write a love song, and yet this one just still sort of came out and captured a lot of the way that I felt that the ideal relationship should be, what it should feel like. It wasn't rambling, I'm babbling. This is what it is. Let's see. From also on the album Aphasia. There's a song called Vertigo, and that one actually does say what I intended it to say, and it's sort of an existential diatribe against anybody who is content to pull the wool over their own eyes. New Agers, crystal worshippers, charismatic Christians, etc. I really tried to dig, and contrast the type of person that wants to go find something like a crystal, or a preacher, or a guru out on a mountaintop somewhere to control their lives for them, just because they feel like they can't handle the responsibility of being in charge of their own life. The individual episodes in the song address different facets of the same phenomenon. Did I say that? Let's see. The different verses of the song address different aspects of the same problem. Just someone willfully wanting to deceive themselves about who's in control of their life. In the end, I get pretty hostile about it. I say to the Christians, ignorance is easier than fear. I see on TV, God will make you prosperous if you send me $100,000 or whatever. God's going to call me home, and I won't be here to control your life unless I get $6 million by the end of the month, and that kind of thing. And it really worries me that there are so many people out there that are willing to believe that religion is a passive thing. Religion is an abdication of responsibility. And so, that was what was behind the song. And I just tried to contrast what people want to believe and the cold hard reality of it. I'm a firm believer that no matter how strong your faith is, if you jump off a cliff, you're going to hit the ground. And I think that from my personal experience, even if that isn't true, I'm not gonna go jumping off any cliffs to test my faith. And I sort of wrote that song to discourage other people from trying the same sort of thing. Whether jumping off a cliff is mailing the rent to Jerry Falwell, or throwing away.
I'll be good about some other too. Pockets. That's sort of.
Yeah. Pockets is really straightforward. Start over. Pockets is really a simple, straightforward song. It is kind of
I wish I had more money.
what? Yeah.
Is it I wish I had more money?
No, it's not. I wish I had more money. I always introduce it as a song about being broke. But again, it's one of those. It turned out to be a love song, which it's like right at the top of my list. Don't write love songs. But this one, was clear and concise, and I thought the idea was strong enough to let it live, not kill it in the cradle. So it says what I meant. It made me feel like a writer when I sat down and said, "Oh, gee, yeah, okay." It was again assembled from collected images and collected phrases, and scribbled on legal pads underneath the bed. And "Let Me In," the last song on the Aphasia EP, the pre-release, was that one's been haunting us for 4 or 5 years. And the lyrics have never been fixed. It's never been written.
What's the ground?
What I keep trying to make it about, and what it just absolutely refuses to be about, is just mortality and being aware of your own mortality. The feeling that I was trying to capture in it was, I saw some old movie from the 1920s. Late 20s, early 30s. It was, I'm sure one of the early talkies. But the acting in it, I don't even remember what the movie was, but the acting in it really held up, and it wasn't as caricatured and overstated as movies from that era tend to be. And the people all seemed like very real and very, very lifelike. All the characters seemed, I could look at these people and say, these people are actually alive. And because I could do that, all of a sudden I started to think of, this, the heroine is really beautiful, and now I don't remember who was in it, but I'm sure they're dead. But at the same time, there was still this sense of life that I got from watching the film. So I was trying to capture that feeling of looking at something, looking at a picture, an artifact from the past, and realizing that the life that created that artifact was gone now. And the only way that we really touch that life is through the artistry that they were able to put into their work, and through the fumbling for words again.
So to ask you about peace prize, that's already in the video.
No, I haven't haven't gotten let me in.
I know, but maybe if you do peace price, you can come back and let me in. So sometimes it's okay if things don't come out like you think they're supposed to.
Okay. Anyway, a lot of the songs that I have written, particularly Vertigo and Peace Prize, are digs at organized religion in various forms. I think that, especially now after the fall of the Eastern Bloc, that religious bigotry is certainly the most dangerous force on the planet. And in Peace Prize, I strung together 3 actual, straight from the headlines episodes of religious violence. And the first one was the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which, well, it's a territorial dispute. It's also a religious war. The second one was the Iran-Iraq war. I read somewhere where they were using 10 and 11-year-old kids as minesweepers, running the kids out in the minefields, letting them martyr themselves for Allah at the ripe old age of 10 or 11, so that the trained soldiers would not be blown up by the mines and they could go and shoot at the trained soldiers from the other side. And the third episode was the bombing, the IRA bombing in London. I don't remember when it was, 1978 or 1979, where they bombed a regimental band that was playing in a park in London and killed 10 or 12 people. And anyway, again, it's a religious war, more or less.
The point here that life always matters more than politics, or is that a little too simplistic?
I wouldn't say that. I don't think that.
Joan of Arc wasn't necessarily wrong.
Well, Joan of Arc wasn't necessarily wrong. I think anybody that saw the violence of World War II and saw that just the depravity of the depravity of the Holocaust. I don't think any price is too high to pay to be rid of that kind of depravity. But the next, I see that kind of insanity coming out of Islam, coming out of radical Christian groups, just basic religious bigotry will create a world that is scarier than Nazi Germany if people are willing to sit aside and watch it.
I remember you were saying one time that nothing matters in life but art, politics, and religion. That sort of broad sweep. Do you have anything you'd like to say about the above 3? Like maybe how not Shakespeare got its name?
No. The story of how not Shakespeare got his name is so stupid and boring that we make up a new one now every time somebody asks us.
Tell the real one.
So,
This is history.
it followed us home from school one day and it was so cute we decided to keep it.
No. So who wrote the newspaper article? You or just some regular person?
I wrote it.
Who wrote it?
Yeah, it was okay. The real story.
The real story was
We sat down and we had been the Stains for a long time.
the stain.
The Stains, yeah. And we had a sudden unexpected personnel change. Someone just sort of didn't show up anymore. And so there was a band called the Stains in DC, and there was another one in Los Angeles. We figured it was getting a little bit overworked. And us being the gracious type people we are, we decided that we would be one of the ones to give up the name. So we had everybody went home and thought for about a week and a half about what would be a great name for a band. We came back with a list of about 300 of them from Simple Machine to the Catatonic Lesbians to Four Guys on Dope, and the actual phrase "not Shakespeare" I had written in a newspaper article. I was talking about somebody's lyrics are certainly better than our last outing, but they're not Shakespeare. And it just seemed, at a time where everybody was being the Cars and the Knack and the this and the that, that being not something would sort of go against the grain there, and perhaps make us stand out enough to get noticed. So, and it also was sort of self-deprecating, and it didn't commit the band to any particular style. Like, if we called it Thrash Monsters from Hell, you would pretty much be committed to doing a certain style of music. Whereas if we were not Shakespeare, as long as we didn't come out and do faithful renderings of Hamlet on stage, we were pretty much okay doing anything else. And, so we took it, and the next tour is going to be the Please Spell Our Name Right tour. For as big of an impact as Shakespeare has had on Western culture, I'm really amazed at how few people can spell his name.
That's kind of my job, I guess. I can't think of anything else unless you want to go back to, you could talk about your first practice at Rock.
The Virginia Tech dorms are classic dormitory architecture, cinder blocks, concrete. Anyway, in the basement of Vaughter Hall, there's a room that's just sort of a non-specified area. It's in the basement. It's not accessible from the rest of the building. You have to go outside and down a stairway. And this is because it was free space. This is where we started practicing. It has like a 15-foot ceiling, linoleum floors, and concrete roof and cinder block walls. So it's a lot like shouting in a bucket. And that's where we had our first rehearsal. I picked up ads from people just saying bass player wants to join band, drummer wants to join band. Picked them up in the music building, and we just sort of called everybody up. When we got together one day, we were total strangers, and we just talked about, well, we like Elvis Costello, Sex Pistols, Clash, this, that, and the other thing. And so we started out doing crunchy new wave covers in this noise basement, and it was just a mind-bending racket. And so we've gone from being a mind-bending racket to hopefully getting pretty close to making some coherent noise on stage and having it all hold up for audiences over 10 years. So progress has been slow, but I think now we sound like what we want to sound like most of the time.
Do you remember anything else about Let Me In?
Take two. With Let Me In, I'd seen some movie from the 1920s or 30s, and the acting stood up really well. Unlike most films from that era, it wasn't really stilted and overacted, and there was just an overwhelming sense of liveliness that I got. And when I sat down and realized that all these people were probably dead, there's just something in my mind couldn't make the connection. And I wanted to sort of capture the feeling that I felt watching that movie and seeing it as something that was alive long after the people that had made it were gone. And I tried to build up a framework and Let Me In where the initial setting is a person looking back on a work of art or a photograph or something that undeniably expresses the life of somebody or something that is gone now, and then in the second setting, to have him looking ahead and trying to send his voice into the future, past the time where he'll be alive, and try to leave something that will live beyond his years, and ultimately it ends with just him screaming at the future, "Let me in."
Do you want to thank the
Kids
Lord?
don't what?
Do you want to thank the Lord people?
And I just say, kids, don't try this at home.
But you can see it right there. So, do you have anything
I just, I want to bit. Yeah,
there?
I like
Okay. So,
that. Identify yourself and tell us a little about George and his contribution to Blacksburg music.
Okay. George and his contribution to Blacksburg music by Jonathan Xavier Fire, take 1. Hi, my name's Johnny Fire. You've probably seen me in other parts of this tape, and I've been asked to say a few things about George Wade's contribution to music in Blacksburg. George has been working the music scene here now for 10 years, since he first started eons ago when we were all freshmen and sophomores and got into this music thing. And George has done quite a bit for the music scene around here. Let me start all over again. You can use part of that, can't you? Like the intro, maybe?
yeah.
Or should I just start from the beginning?
Set up a little story. I don't know how you're going to feel more comfortable like that.
Okay, go ahead. You can start again.
Okay. Hi. Hello. My name's Johnny Fire, and I'm the founder of Digital Witchcraft. You probably have seen me or will see me in other parts of this film, and I've been asked to talk about George Wade's contribution to music in the Blacksburg music scene. George Wade has been working in the music business both as a performer, a producer, and a sound engineer now for 10 years, and has done quite a bit locally for the Blacksburg music scene over the last 10 years. I think, as he said in one of his interviews, when he first came here, there wasn't a professional sound company in this town. Most of the bands that were here, in fact all of the bands that were here, were fraternity party bands, and that's about all they ever amounted to. There were some really good musicians here when I first got here in '79, but nobody really knew what to do with it or where to take it, or really had the interest in trying to pursue this thing as a career at the time. It was more of a hobby. And George has sort of led the way, I think, for all of us. Unfortunately, because he led the way and because there wasn't anybody here to teach him, most of what he's learned, I think, has probably come from the school of hard knocks, which has been hard on George. But on the other hand, sometimes the burned hand teaches the best, and he's learned really well how to manage, promote, organize, do sound engineering, do production work, get people together on time, get things done. Not Shakespeare, the band that he founded 10 years ago, has come quite a long way and is probably, well, it's the number one band in town, I would say. And it's sort of a guidepost or a light, I guess, for a lot of us who are starting out, who are younger, to see that they have been able to hold it together this long and get as far as they have gotten. I think all of us would like to see them get a major national recording contract. But it's nice to see that at least one group of people can do it, and I guess it gives the rest of us a lot of hope that they can do that. George tries to take the time to work with younger people, tries to teach him what he knows, which is a great deal. And I think probably we would spend more time doing that if there was more money in it. Unfortunately, like the rest of us, he somehow has to scrape by and make a living. And in this business, especially in this town, it's pretty difficult to make any kind of a real living off of this. George has made a lot of sacrifices to get where he is today. I think he mentioned something about he dropped out of college, and while he has a good business going with fairly good cash flow and everything, it requires pretty much all of his work all the time. He doesn't get to take vacations. He doesn't get to do a lot of things that he'd like to do. And I think that that's something that around here, that if you're going to be in the music business in a small town like that, like this, that's just one of the sacrifices that you have to make. And I don't really know exactly what to say about that, except thanks, George, for all the work that you've done to get everything together over the last 10 years. And I'm pretty sure that comes from everybody else in town, too. It hasn't been an easy 10 years, but it's been an interesting 10 years. So, is that fine?
It's great.
Okay.